Good day. Welcome to another session of Fog Accountancy Tutorials. Today we are going to continue our lesson on the financial statement analysis, and we are going to learn how to write a report on calculated ratios. I'm going to guide you on how to write a report for the ratios that you have calculated, okay? Now we know that the analysis is not just about making comments, but the interpretation has to be written and organized in a report. So in higher examination levels, you need to write a report after calculating of the ratios. Now, in the ACCA or the ICAJ, Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, CPA, Kenya, Uganda, or wherever. Now, listen very carefully. When you are writing this report, you should understand that the report carries marks than the calculations in most cases. There are some cases where if the exam is 20 marks, it's 10-10. 10 for calculations, 10 for report. Now, at the final level or the level 3, usually the calculation may be just 5 marks and the report will be 15 marks. Now, there are some cases where you even be given, like my case, when I was writing my final paper to be a chartered accountant, the question that was given, the ratios were already calculated for you in the question. So it means that you have nothing to do with calculations and you are required to write the report. And the mark was 20 marks. So all the 20 marks for the report you are coming to write. And so if you don't know how to write this report, you'll be in trouble. And you see, in these exams that we do, in these professional exams, or the master's degree exams and all that, when you are being examined on financial statement analysis or interpretation of financial statements, the report will always be the important thing. And in any exam, like I said, it will always come. They will bring this question because that is what you're actually going to do. The job of an accountant has evolved from just being a bookkeeper to interpreting the financial statement that you have prepared. And so most of the users of these financial statements do not understand financial figures as they are written. That is why you need to convert them into written form so that everybody who read can understand something about the performance and position. Now, there are two things you are going to analyze in this report. You are going to analyze the financial performance, which is about profitability issues, and then the financial position, which is about 10 items on the statement of financial position. So that is what we are going to do. So I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm going to teach you the report, but I'm going to take you through the format of the report. And as I'm taking you through the format, at every level or at every point, I'm going to show you under every subheading what you should do, what is expected of you over there. And then that is what you are going to do. Now, let's begin with the report itself. So the report. Now, watch what I'm going to teach you very carefully and just go accordingly so that you will be able to pass your exam. So let me just demarcate the board this way. Now, the report begins like a memo. Okay, so you are going to write to, maybe to the managing director, to shareholders, to the board of directors, or to whoever. Now, the question in an exam situation, the question is going to teach you or tell you who you are writing to. So if the question will give you a position. So maybe as a financial consultant or as an accountant or as the chief finance controller or chief finance officer, you are to write a report to the managing director. So if the question says to the managing director, you write managing director. If they say to shareholders, to shareholders. If they say to the board of directors, to the board of directors. So whoever that you are supposed to write the report to according to the questions, what you are going to do. And this is very practical because in an exam situation, in the office, this is what you do in the office. And so to, let's say to the managing director, then you now say from. Now, from is the position they have given you. So if the question says, as a financial controller, write a report, then you say from the financial controller. If they say from the accountant, you say the accountant. So to the managing director, from the accountant. And then the date of the report will also come. So date. Usually in an exam situation, it will be the date of the exam, in most cases. So let's say the date you are writing is on the 7th of November 2022. So you arrange it this way, and then the next thing is subject. Now, this is why I have an issue with students. After the subject, you are going to write an introduction. That is the next thing on the report. So make sure that your subject is not too long, because you are going to still write an introduction which still reflects the subject. So the subject is about what you are doing. What is it about? What is your report about? So it should be as brief as possible. Just a line. So you can say that subject, analysis of financial performance and position of, then you mention the name of the company. If the company is, let's say, FOG Limited, and the exam is requiring that you analyze financial position and performance of FOG Limited, your subject is going to be analysis of financial performance and position of FOG Limited. So that is the subject, as brief as possible. Don't write a long sentence that will curve, and some people even put a full stop and continue. No, that is done in the introduction level. So these are the first things that you do: to, from, subject, date, and then the subject. Then after the subject, you come down to introduction. So you are now coming to the body of the report itself. And from the body of the report, the first thing you do is introduction. So you underline that. Now, the introduction should also be brief, but capturing all the essentials that you need to capture. In other words, you are going to tell the examiner what you are coming to talk about in the report. Now, we are going to classify the report under the 5 headings that we know: profitability, liquidity, efficiency, gearing, and then shareholder investment. Now, there are instances where efficiency or the activity ratios and then the liquidity are analyzed together. So in that case, it's going to be 4 headings. It's going to be profitability, liquidity, profitability, liquidity, and efficiency as one heading, then gearing, and then now, in a case where you want to analyze liquidity and efficiency together, then probably means that the information on efficiency is not that much. That is why you wanted to combine. But where you have enough information on both headings, please separate them. So that is it. So with the introduction, you are going to say that this report talks about, or this report reports on profitability, liquidity, of, you give all the headings you are going to talk about, of FOG Limited for the year ended, or for the period between maybe 1st January and 31st December 2021, or for the year ended. So in other words, your introduction should capture all the headings you are coming to talk about. Then 2, it should also capture the period of analysis. Okay? So that is what you are going to do. So you give them a very nice introduction. So this report is a coverage of the financial position and performance of FOG Limited for the year ended 31st December 2021. Then you continue to say that it covers the area of profitability, liquidity, gearing, and shareholder investment. Then you put a full stop. That is enough for your introduction. The introduction should capture the reader's attention on what you are coming to talk about and what to expect. Okay, so after you have given a very brief and important introduction, then you come to the main items. You start with profitability. Now, listen very carefully. When we get to profitability, just like any other liquidity and all, I'm going to show you what I'm going to teach you is not only about profitability. So we'll talk about liquidity and all that, but please, I'm just going to give you 5 key things you should mention under each of them, because profitability ratios, you know them, liquidity ratios, you know them, and then the gearing and all that. So I'm going to mention what you should comment on under each of the headings. So you talk about profitability. After profitability, you talk about liquidity and all that. Now, after liquidity, you talk about efficiency. Now, in all this, listen to what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you things you should mention under each of them. You are going to see profitability ratios like net profit margin, gross profit margin, returns on capital employed, and all that. You are going to see the current ratio, the quick ratio, and all that. You are going to see the inventory days, payable days, and then the stock turnover and all that. Now, what we are trying to say is that these are the things you should do. This is a guide for you in commenting on the ratios, because we know how to comment on them from the level 1, but I'm going to teach you how to arrange it in a report. Now, these are the things. So let me say key areas to comment on. Now, take note that your analysis can be in 2 ways. You can do just one of the 2 or both combined. You may be asked to do inter-year comparison of the same firm. So you'll be given the financial statement of 2019, financial statement of 2020, financial statement of 2021. You calculate ratios for each of the years, and then you analyze a trend of performance. So whether you are doing that, it means that you look at 2020 and see whether you are doing better, you are improving in performance as compared to 2019, or 2021, they are declining and all that. Or you may be asked to do the analysis based on industry averages that will be given to you. So they will give you an industry average, and then you talk about the performance of the company in relation to the industry. So your comparison will now no more be year after year, but you are now going to compare with the industry. Or there could be 2 companies or 3 companies that you are comparing, like what we did in the previous part of this video. Now, whatever that you are doing, these key areas I'm going to give you hold. And please watch it very carefully. And please watch it very carefully. The first thing you should do is that you comment on your observation. You comment on your observation. What have you observed from your calculated ratios? What have you observed? Now, your observations should come with interpretations. So your observations and interpretations of what you have seen. So that is the first thing you should talk about. So if you have observed that the company FOG Limited is doing 25% as net profit margin when the industry is doing 30%, that is your observation. What is the meaning? It means that they are doing worse as compared to their competitors. So that is the interpretation. Ended there. So you talk about your observation. If you are talking about previous years, you can say that, oh, in 2019, they were doing gross profit margin of 20%, but in 2020, they are doing 28%, meaning that they have improved in performance. That is observation and interpretation. That is what I mean. So you talk about that. Okay? So you start talking about all your observations. So every ratio, you talk about your observations on them. And then their interpretations. That is the first thing you should talk about under each heading. So under liquidity, efficiency, or whatever. Afterwards, I'll just show you what to do and then how to conclude it. So under each heading, you do this. Write about your observations on the ratios and their possible interpretations. Then the next thing you should talk about is that talk about the possible causes of what you have observed. The possible causes of what you have. What is causing that? If they are not doing well, what do you think is causing it? Because at this level, you can't just tell me, okay, 20% they are doing well than the previous year, and then the examiner will just pass you. Come on. Everybody can see that 20% is greater than 15%. So that is not enough to get a pass mark. But you need to talk about the possible causes of what you are observing. And this is where you need to be smart, because I tell my students that over here, you need an application of not only accounting and finance knowledge, but you can bring in procurement knowledge. You can bring in knowledge on marketing. Because this is a holistic report that you are writing on the performance. So you can talk about marketing issues, but you don't talk about absolute things that you think they don't exist. You don't talk about things that you think they are not existing, or that is not absolutely mentioned. Okay, so you can use a language that is more considerate, like might or may. So you can say it may be that. So for example, you realize that sales is rising, like from year after year, the sales is going high, but profits are going low. Then you can see that it means that they are spending too much. So expenses are too high. So this may be as a result. Sometimes if they give you the financial statement, you will see high expenses. So you don't need to say this may be. You can say this is as a result of high expenses. But if they didn't give the financial statement, you can say that this may be as a result of. so that you will be safe because you don't know what is actually happening on the ground. So this may be as a result of high expenses. Or if sales are declining, you can see that sales are declining and that is what is causing profitability to fall. Then you can say that this may be as a result of poor advertisement, poor marketing, poor promotional strategies. So once sales is declining, marketing issues can come in and it's acceptable. So once you talk about your observations and interpretations, talk about the possible causes. And it doesn't work only for the profitability, it works for liquidity and efficiency as well. So you see that current ratio is lower than that of the industry. It may be as a result of what? If you have any possible poor inventory management, it may be as a result of poor credit control. So if the problem is there, talk about the possible cause of the problem. If there is no problem and you think it's good, you talk about what makes it good. Oh, they are doing proper credit control. This may be as a result of good advertisement. So we are not only here to look for problems, we are also here to look for good things and talk about them. So once you talk about your observations and interpretations under each of the headings, you make sure you talk about the possible causes. And then I think that is also going to earn you some marks as well. Okay. Then after you have spoken about possible causes, then you give an advice on possible solutions. So advice on possible solutions. That is if it's a problem. If it's a problem you have identified, you give an advice on possible solutions. You don't just talk. You don't just give an empty report. Give an advice on possible solutions. So you don't just end marks with the report. Some people just make observations, interpret, and they skip. And when it comes and they fail, they say that the exam, the ICAG or ACCA people, they are wicked. No, we don't do that. You need to give a holistic and a very rich report so that when we pick your report and we are reading, we know that you understand the concepts you are talking about. So over here, I told you it's not just about accounting or finance. You can bring in strategic management ideas. You can bring in marketing ideas, procurement, things that you think that are causes of, because most of these non-financial business issues affect the finances. And so if finances are falling, you can bring them in as possible causes and give advice on how to deal with them. It could even be a managerial issue, that incompetence in the management. You can talk about them once you have evidence on them, except you don't know. So please make your report a holistic and a rich one. So you give advice on possible solutions for the causes, if the causes are problems. So under each heading, you give an advice on the problems. So under profitability, when you are talking about it, give advice. Under liquidity, give advice. Under efficiency, give advice. Then if it was not a challenge, but it was, I told you the causes could not be, it's not the time it's a problem. If it is a good thing you are commending, you can also give advice on how they can sustain it or improve on it. So you can also advise on possible means of sustaining the good performance. Or improving on it or on them. So if it was a problem, you advise on possible solutions. If it's something that they are doing well, you give an advice on possible means of sustaining or improving upon them. Then you give us a very rich report. And that is also for each heading that you are going to create. And then finally, what you need to do is that after doing all these things, remember to conclude under each subheading. Remember to conclude under each subheading. So under profitability, after you have commented, you have interpreted, you give possible source causes, you give an advice, then you conclude on profitability alone. That's okay. Looking at what you have done, you think they are doing well, profitability is okay, or is not good, or is bad. So that is just a conclusion on your general observation of all the three ratios. If there are three ratios, a conclusion on what you think about them in general. Then under liquidity, you conclude on them. Before you move to efficiency, you do a conclusion. You move to the next one. Allow me to create, okay, I'll come back here. But after efficiency, we'll talk about gearing or debt levels. You talk about the same 5, you conclude. And then finally, shareholder investment. You talk about all these 4, you conclude. So this key that I have given you is for every subheading under report. So we talk about, and don't be, just write a good report. So under shareholder investment, okay, maybe your observation is that earnings per share is better than that of the industry average. What do you think is a possible cause? Okay, you think that the possible cause is that the sales are going high, profit is going high, they are doing good marketing, they are doing that. So you think that they have cut down expenses and so they are adding shareholder wealth. Okay, so what is your advice? You advise that they should continue doing this. If it is low as compared to the industry average, you tell us the possible causes, what you think is causing that. And then if you have any advice to give them, you give. Then you conclude your general observation on because you're not going to talk about only one ratio. If there are 3 or 4, 1 may be good, 2 may be bad, 2 may be good. It's not all the time that all the ratios under each category will be okay. So it's their ups and downs. That is why you need to learn how to conclude under each heading. Give your fair conclusion, what you think overall under each of them. And when you have concluded, then finally you have a big conclusion for the report. Now, the big conclusion is like a combination of all the small conclusions you have done under each subheading. That is what you are going to do. So I'm going to clean this and I'm going to clean the points I've done and then maybe give you a proper arrangement of the report and teach you how to conclude. But the conclusion is a bigger conclusion of all the 5. So this time, your summary conclusion under your little conclusion under each of them, you now come and pick all the 5 and then get one conclusion out of it for all. And then you'll be done with the report. So let me just show you how to go about that as well. So what I've done now, I've just cleaned this and I want to show you something. So after efficiency, you talk about gearing, like I said on the report, gearing or leverage. And then you also talk about shareholder investments. So these are the 5 headings of the report. Now, please take note that don't add ratio, even though we know there are profitability ratios, liquidity ratios that you are analyzing and all that. But please, when you are writing the report, avoid adding the ratios. Just say profitability. If it's liquidity, liquidity. Don't say liquidity ratios in the report. Even though you are going to analyze liquidity ratios, just say liquidity, efficiency, gearing, shareholder investments. Then you are done. Then after you speak about, now under all these 5, you are going to follow the 5 steps I gave you to comment on the ratios. Use the same 5 steps. Then you can now conclude. So you say conclusion. Now the conclusion here is the bigger conclusion of all that you have done. Everything, what your fair assessment of the performance and position of the company in general. So in the end, what do you think? Is the company moving forward? Are they running into a ditch? Is something wrong they need to correct? You need to conclude briefly here. And your conclusion is based on those little conclusions you have done under each heading. Because under the profitability, you concluded probably on 3 ratios. Net profit margin is there, you talk about it. Gross profit margin, and then maybe the return on capital employed. Then you give a conclusion. Now, 1 may be bad, 2 may be good, but you manage to give a conclusion on what you think overall about their profitability. Then you gave the same conclusion for liquidity. What do you think overall? Efficiency, what do you think overall? So after you have done your little conclusions for the headings, you come under the big conclusion, you pick those ones, and then you think what you think about the company overall based on your conclusions under each heading. So you can summarize. If 3 of them are doing very well and the 2 is very bad, you can say that they are doing well in terms of profitability, liquidity, and efficiency, but not doing too well in gearing and doing very bad in terms of shareholder investment. So this is what you think. Where you think they should improve, you talk about it in general, and then you conclude. So your conclusion is very simple. Just pick the little conclusions, and then it will help you to talk about the bigger conclusion. And when you are done, you sign out by signing your signature and then maybe your name. So and then your name. So Felix OJB at the end. If you have to add your title or your rank, you put it there, and then you are done. So this is how to write a formal report, a report to whoever. Even in practice, you need this. Okay, in you can do this in the banks, in the companies, everywhere. You need to do this. As a finance manager, if you cannot write a report on the financial statement, then I don't see why you should occupy that position. And then in the exam, this is what you do in order to get your marks. And when you write a very rich report, you get very excellent marks. Nobody is here to take away your marks, but you need to produce what deserves the pass mark. Okay. So I am sure that you've been helped so much with this, and you continue to solve questions to improve yourself. And then I'm sure that you will be fine. So this brings us to the end of our lesson on interpretation of financial statement. We may solve a question and write a report for you to see, or we may solve a question where we will present a report on the screen for you to look at a sample report later. But for now, let us focus on other topics. I'm sure that this outline that I have done is enough to help you to be able to pass your exam. Remember to subscribe to this channel if this is your first time, or if you are yet to subscribe. Share this video, invite your colleagues to also be a blessing by this channel. And until we meet again for another video, it is bye for now.